Okay, everybody, welcome to the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. This is an expansion on what my channel already provides. This is going to be a podcast that talks about pop culture, comic books, movies, TV shows. We're going to have interviews on the chat on this new venture, the Spotlight, and we're really excited about it. Like all podcasts, we're going to have the audio version, which will be available on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify, Google Play, uh, all the normal channels, as well as the video portion will be on my YouTube channel. So I hope that you join us on this new journey. It's going to be an hour-long podcast once a week. It should be really exciting. And on the first episode here, I've got my good friend Stu. He is going to be bantering back and forth with me. I've known him for years. He is a former production supervisor in the film industry and now works independently in video. And I'm really excited to have him. He's also the mastermind, the guy behind the curtain on my channel. So he keeps me going on YouTube as my tech guy. He's awesome. So I hope you enjoy the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. So I went to Dark Horizons website today. I love that site. It's been a go-to site for a long time. Garth down there, he's always got some good tips, good leads. And anyway, they had in their news section, they talked to the editors for The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens, not the editor for The Last Jedi. And, and then it brought up everything that, The Rise of Skywalker is now on digital and Blu-ray, and it's going to be streaming soon and all this stuff. And that documentary that came out, and what the editors said today just solidified, like, I think, like how a lot of people have felt for a long time with how the second act, The Last Jedi, just blew. And,
Understatement.
The editors. Yeah. I mean, the editors clearly said that they didn't understand how Rian Johnson could throw out everything that was set up in the first movie.
Yeah, that's been my complaint with it. I mean, I have no love for The Last Jedi, so. But yeah, man, I saw that article today too, and it was pretty illuminating to actually have high up crew people. I mean, really above the line people making those statements after the fact. Because normally there's been that rumor of John Boyega, like you were mentioning before, he might come out and say something, but it's this is the first I've heard, other than Mark Hamill kind of dropping little hints along the way.
Well, I think little hints have always been peppered out, or people were just in denial. They didn't want to talk about Last Jedi's the greatest thing in the world, and they didn't want to talk about the fact that, like, when Daisy Ridley found out JJ was coming back to do Rise of Skywalker, before it was even titled, before she even knew anything, she cried.
Yeah.
I mean, and that says it right there. I mean, like, she cried because she was happy, because I think she knew all along. And when you watch that, I did not buy The Last Jedi on Blu-ray. It's one that I'm not going to own. I've got Disney Plus, so now I'm forced to have it there. So I watched, the director's video, a documentary, and you could what they did to Mark Hamill. I mean, not just the Luke Skywalker character, but they, like, really just turned the screws on Mark and just drove him into the ground. And he was right. I mean, it wasn't Luke Skywalker, it was Jake Skywalker. And I think he was kind later on because, they have a tendency to, like with David Prowse, he's made some missteps over the years, and, they ban him from a lot of Lucasfilm stuff. And I think, Mark didn't want to ruffle too many feathers and upset people. So he started playing the game and respinning how he felt. But it was clear in that documentary how he felt.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I refused to spend any money. I bought the Force Awakens. I pretty much bought every Star Wars movie, but I refused to buy The Last Jedi. So I didn't get to see that.
Yeah, but you didn't see the documentary?
No, I haven't. I won't. I feel like I'd just be pissed off the entire time watching the train wreck that was The Last Jedi.
Dude, the documentary one, which was called the director,
Uh-huh.
Mark is just livid, man. Mark
Yeah.
is just so fired up. And you could see him just shaking his head, Luke wouldn't do this, blah, 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 blah. And it shows you how, they just they weren't. And look, I have a theory about what went down. And I've shared this with you too as well, but the audience needs to hear this too. So I feel like um, they right off the bat they had some issues with Rogue One. Gareth Edwards did a great job, but they brought in Tony Gilroy to do second unit. He actually kind of reshaped the third act in the film, and they were like, "Uh-oh, dodged a bullet." That movie still ended up doing $1.2 billion, and out of all of the new Star Wars films, Rogue One is hands down the best one I think they've done.
Yeah. I like Force Awakens, but yeah.
Well, no, I like The Force Awakens too, because of course you got Han Solo and you got Princess Leia, and you got Luke, and it was all that return. Well, Luke at the end, one scene, but but I think like what got me was that then Solo comes along and they hired those two knuckleheads who should just stick with animation because they got the little Oscar for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was really good, and they do good with the Lego movies. Unfortunately, I just don't think live action is their thing. They've got their wheelhouse is just not the same as someone who works in film. So Ron Howard comes in, Damage Control, they get that movie out. And I think what happened was they really were probably not happy with what was going on with The Last Jedi, but I think they were so far into it that if they were like, if we fire Rian Johnson, they are going to think we don't know what we're doing at all because we've screwed up with all these directors. And I think they just bit the bullet and were like, we're just going to power through since we haven't had any hiccups production wise. We're going to stick with Ryan's vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think getting back sort of to the article that the ladies were the editors of the Force Awakens and the Rise of Skywalker, how they completely, like, The Last Jedi deconstructed everything they did in the first movie. And I would agree with that statement because that's pretty much what I found kind of off-putting. Well, one of the things was it did seem like you had this great setup at the end of The Force Awakens where you were like really excited. That's why the thing did like almost $2 billion or whatever. Cause it was
it did $2 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a great start to a reboot or a continuation of a story. And then when you get to Last Jedi, the tone feels completely different. And then it kind of goes in this weird direction. And then I'm sorry for old school people who grew up, with Luke Skywalker as a childhood hero. It's just not like we all wanted to know what happened to Luke after Return of the Jedi. And there's so much awesome stuff. And the first thing out of the gate, you got him tossing a lightsaber over his shoulder like it's nothing. That was a slap in the face. And this whole subvert expectations thing was just a miss. Like it just pissed people off. It didn't really do a good job in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there was a lot of complaints. Some people on the fringe about the Force Awakens. Oh, it was like a soft reboot of the first movie, and there was a mentor that died, and then there was a super Death Star, which was the giant planet, and blah blah blah, and then they had to go in and destroy the oscillator, which was like the tower and Jedi. But even Lucas had repeatedly said that all of these themes are cyclical. And if you look at A New Hope and then you look at The Phantom Menace, A New Hope was a boy in the desert that finds his way, gets a mentor. The mentor is taken away from him, and then he helps win, destroying the Death Star at the end. He lost Obi-Wan Kenobi in the way, and then he forms these relationships with these friends, and then he saves the day and he gets the medal. And then you looked at The Phantom Menace. You had a little boy in the desert who finds a mentor in Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn is killed by Darth Maul, who is essentially Darth Vader. And then at the end, he's in the little Naboo fighter going into the droid control ship, shooting it, destroying it, and it explodes just like a Death Star surrounded by a half donut. And then at the end, they're all holding up that globe with the Naboo people, and they're basically getting their medals. It's cyclical.
Right.
And then a New Hope, or in The Force Awakens, you've got the woman in the desert who finds a mentor in Han Solo. He's killed by Darth Vader, Kylo Ren with the lightsaber, and then they destroy the super weapon. Because I mean, let's be honest, all these empires, First Orders, Sith Order, whatever you want to call them, they all just want a super weapon to intimidate the shit out of somebody
Yeah.
and kill them.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. And so you're always going to get these stories that are cyclical, if you were going with the same pattern that Lucas had put forward.
Yeah. No, you're right. I agree with that. And that's why I think, and I've brought this up before, but like, I know you defend Kathleen Kennedy, but I blame her entirely, because I think since she was sort of overseeing the whole thing, at some point someone had to be like, we should have a clear direction of a like cherished franchise. Like, there's a reason why The Force Awakens did so much, because people were waiting forever for a continuation to Return of the Jedi. And like, when you're responsible for that, and you've had these problems in the past, and anytime they let these directors do their own thing, it's always been bad news. You know, like Star Wars has sort of a feel and a look to it. And if you start deviating too much, it's not Star Wars anymore, you know? It's kind of like the same thing going on with Star Trek, you know, with Discovery. It feels so different from the other ones that, I mean, part of it's technology being able to do more than they could before. But, I mean, you get that sort of knee-jerk reaction from the fan base because this is what they expect it to look like. And I know things need to change and evolve and become better, but she was running the ship, and she let, like, especially the core trilogy, you let someone come in and undo what you did in the first film. How does that make any sense for the...
I mean, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
I get it. And I understand your frustration with Kathleen. And you know, I defend her only because as someone, you know, I mean, we both work in the film industry, and as someone who's works day to day, 12 hours a day on a production, in multiple departments that I have over the years, I've seen other UPMs and production supervisors have to make crazy decisions. And so in some respects, I feel like, you know, when they finally looked at Rogue One and were like, you know what, it's a little weaker. There were issues where Gareth Edwards, you know, he came from an area where they were doing a lot of the handheld, shaky cam stuff, that's how he was able to make his monster movie and not really show a monster, because he could make it a handy cam looking thing, free-handed. And so it had that Saving Private Ryan style shooting, Rogue One. And then they were like, nah, this isn't really going to gel with everything. So they had to pull the reins back and fix it. That was a decision that, yeah, they probably should have, you know, figured that out ahead of time, but at least the decision was made to fix it. And then with Ron Howard, with Solo, same thing. It was like they saw these two knuckleheads, and the main thing that drove those decisions was really, you know, Larry Kasdan, because Larry wrote the script. He wrote The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, he wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, Lawrence Kasdan is like, and his son now has taken over the reins and is starting to write some really amazing stuff too. He wrote Solo with his father, Larry. And so, you know, Larry calls up Kathleen. He's like, dude, these directors are screwing this up. They're not taking my word seriously on the page. They're letting these people improv. And then Alden Ehrenreich calls Kathleen. He's like, Kathleen, he was like, I feel like Ace Ventura Pet Detective. They're making me out to be this Jim Carrey thing. This is not the Han Solo I wanted to play. And so she had to go in as a producer and creatively squash shit. And, you know, the thing is, when they brought in all these hot directors, Gareth Edwards, Rian Johnson, the two knuckleheads from Spider-Man, whatever their names are, they always slip my mind because I really don't give a shit about them. And but the thing is, they were looking at Gareth Edwards, you know, did Godzilla, $500 million, and he was loyal to the subject matter of Godzilla because he was a Godzilla fan. He was a Star Wars fan, so it's like, oh, then he's going to do a good job with this. And then you had, you know, Rian Johnson. He had Looper, and he had some small successes. And it was like, oh, well, this guy's going to be great. And then, and so on and so on. I think they were trying to pass the torch not only with the characters of the new trilogy, but also with the directors and letting new people take over. So it wasn't just like one guy, George Lucas, directing 6 films. And then, you know, they were trying to let people bring this fresh perspective, but it backfired. That's right. That's how you feel.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it backfired. And I think, I guess I'm more frustrated that there wasn't a more solid plan with the trilogy or finishing out the Skywalker trilogy, and like why you wouldn't have an understanding with all the directors coming in. Like, you're here to serve one vision. You know, it should all feel like it's part of the same trilogy and not try to go in and do your own thing. Because it seems to me like Rian Johnson just did his own thing. It sounded like JJ had a treatment after this where how he saw the trilogy going. And Rian Johnson just threw it over his shoulder and was like, I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm going to subvert expectations by basically undoing everything in your film before. And then, like, the editors said in the article that was going around online the last couple of days or actually today, is that they were left with not a lot to work with, and they had to build a movie or Rise of Skywalker around what Rian Johnson had done to their movie before that. And I agree with that because I mean, we've talked about this too. When I walked out of Rise of Skywalker the first time, I felt happiness and relief that it wasn't trash like The Last Jedi. But then when I went back to see it again, I just felt disappointed by the end of it because I was like, because you just then started really noticing all the sacrifices that had to be made to kind of undo what was done in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, totally. And I agree because like after I think I saw the Rise of Skywalker 3 times in the theater, and I think every time I watched it, I would find more things where it was like, well, you know, the only reason why they did this was because they did that, and
Right.
and they had to fix that. And then it was so many things like, I mean, just blatant dialogue lines like, well, why don't we just pull a hold-on maneuver?
Yeah.
And then, well, no, that's just not going to
Right.
work. You know, I mean, just a slap in the face, right? Absolute slap in the face.
Well, the biggest slap in the face was Mark Hamill grabbing the lightsaber when Rey tossed it in, and it's like, you should treat a Jedi's weapon with more respect. If that wasn't the biggest FU to Rian Johnson, I don't know what else was.
No, you're 100% right. That totally was a complete slap in the face. And I really feel like, and here's the thing, like people could blame and say, because J.J. Abrams had outlines for like the next 2 films to kind of complete it. And like you said, just like throwing the lightsaber over the shoulder, he was like, screw it, I'm doing my own thing. And, you know, he probably was very persuasive in his discussions with Lucasfilm and the Lucasfilm story group and all that. And they were, oh, well, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about.
Right.
But somebody like, you know, you would think, you know, Dave Filoni or Hidalgo, somebody would have been like, you know, dude, no,
right,
this is not going to work. But they didn't, because, you know, in a creative process, you don't step on toes. I've worked on so many movies where they have given directors so much latitude and the crew just stands around going, why is someone telling this guy, no, stop, move on. This isn't working. Like, but they don't, because they don't want to mess with a creative process, because they think maybe there's gold in there and they want to let it play out. But it was a misstep. It was definitely a mistake.
It was like, we both had friends that worked on Iron Man 3 when it shot there. And I heard people telling me that Shane Black was like sleeping on set somewhere while they were shooting scenes. And Robert Downey Jr. was sort of directing himself half the time. Not all the time, but there was definitely, maybe it was not important or whatever. But I mean, and you know, I hate that movie. Like, and I'm a diehard Iron Man fan. Like, that was the comic book I read growing up, and the Extremis storyline is one of the greatest storylines in Iron Man, and they whiffed that one like big time. And that's another conversation for another time. But like, yeah, so you do see stuff like that where you're like scratching your head, like, how did this guy get this opportunity and like go completely take a right turn? Like, you made an Iron Man movie where he's not Iron Man through most of the movie. That doesn't make any sense. Like,
right. Same thing with like the Last Jedi, was you took an iconic character like Luke Skywalker and you pulled everything that made him Luke out of him. And, you know, why is it our heroes have to be jaded and secluded on an island and hate their lives? Like, why did that decision have to be? I mean, you look at the Lord of the Rings, like even the Hobbit films, Gandalf was still the same guy all the way through. He never lost faith in what he, you know what I mean? Like, You had 3 Hobbit films, right? Was it 3 Hobbit films
Yeah, 3.
or
They
2?
had 3,
3? You had 3 Hobbit
I
films,
think.
3 Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and Gandalf was the same guy. Even when he went to Gandalf the White or the Gray, wherever the
Right.
hell, he did the flip the switch, he was still the same guy, right?
Right.
And that's where I think they just screwed up. But, there was so much that I really enjoyed about going back to J.J. Abrams. I have to say this because J.J. Abrams was very clear why he didn't stick around. He literally said in an interview, "I'm uprooting my children and bringing them to Pinewood Studios in London, and they're going to go to school there, and they're going to miss their friends and miss their family, and I want to commit to one movie because my family is more important to me, and then go back home." I have mad respect for JJ for wanting to do that and be right by his children, period. But then he has to come back going against what he wanted to do because he had to let's be honest, they begged him to come back.
Oh, yeah.
No one in Hollywood wanted to touch that shit after it was a complete disaster. And sure, it made 1.3 billion The Last Jedi, but no one wanted to touch that after the ridicule. And they were like, holy shit. And they begged him. They begged JJ to come back. And the result was he delivered a soft reboot of Return of the Jedi.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I
Down
think
to
that's
having Warwick Davis in it as an Ewok. I mean, come on. He's like,
they went too much fan service. I mean, and and like the thing is, I don't even have an issue with Luke being this bitter old guy, but you got to give him a chance to get back to the guy we all know. Like, that's fine.
right. And the only way he got to be the guy we all know was as, like he called himself on Twitter, Luke the Spook. He became just a ghost.
Right.
But at least that form of him as a ghost was the Luke that we knew from Return of the Jedi. But that sucks because we needed to see him as this awesome, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
Well, I mean, I think, when you had the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, it clearly threw everything out of whack for the third film because that was supposed to be her film from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And but I don't know why they just didn't hit pause because I think the community would have understood that, yeah, you were building out the third film around Leia and she's no longer here. And we don't want to do the digital replacing or anything. So then take a beat, like take an extra year to figure it out and write a really good story to finish it off where everyone is like, oh, yeah, good. Because then you could have tooled the movie around Luke Skywalker, or in some, I mean, I guess that was the thing that I guess I was more frustrated with Rian Johnson, like needing Luke to die at the end of that movie. I could, like I've said before, I was fine. I could have lived with every choice they made in that movie if they just wouldn't have killed him off at the end because
Oh yeah, if Luke would have just been on the rock meditating at the
Right.
end and then that left it open for Rey to go back and be trained by Luke and all that
Right.
other kind of stuff, that would have been perfect. But the fact that they went with that decision, and they had the time because Carrie Fisher had
Right.
died during the press junket
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
It was like in December, wasn't it? Either right at the
She was like promoting a book. They could have taken that one sliver of the scene out where the cloak flew and dissolved.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yep.
They just had to take that out. But they didn't make that choice. And then we're stuck with what we have. And a lot of people struggle with, addiction and everything. And I always feel bad for Carrie Fisher, but at the same time, she had like 20 different substances in her body. I mean, it was ridiculous when they did the autopsy on her and they did the toxicology. I mean, come on, like you just had a resurgence in your career and everything, and you had Oxycontin and you had, cocaine and you had this and you had that and you had all these antidepressants and you're just like, she was a ticking time bomb and nobody saw it. Doctors didn't. I mean, I don't want to talk ill of her, but you have a responsibility to yourself as a person and also to the millions of people that support you to do the right thing. And I just felt so bad that she, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
No, I mean,
I don't want to knock her. I don't want to knock her. I mean, I love Carrie Fisher. She's had demons like everybody else. But at the same time, it's like, it's like when Tom Petty died and everybody was like, oh, Tom Petty died. Oh, he had a heart attack. And then the toxicology came back. He had like 20 different things in him.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, dude, you've been rocking and rolling for, 50 years.
Right.
And this is your final farewell tour. And you made it just 2 months after the last show. And you had all this shit in your system. What were you thinking?
Yeah.
That old. I don't know. I don't know why older people think they can do drugs like they did when they were in their prime.
Because they look at the Rolling Stones and they're like, well, if these guys can do it, we can do it too.
I'd be shocked. I bet you $100 Keith Richards doesn't do shit anymore.
Who knows, man?
No, I don't think he does.
Who knows?
He's outlived everybody,
Yeah.
even coronavirus.
So yeah, I mean, I guess we probably like gone forever on Star Wars. We should probably move on to the other piece of news that came out this week, which was the Ezra Miller chokeslam of someone.
Dude, what is I did a rant video about Ezra Miller because I was just, again, it's like you have everything in the world handed to you. Okay? 2 major franchises. The wizarding world of Harry Potter's, Fantastic Beasts, and you have Justice League. You are the Flash. You're not doing these artsy fartsy movies because when he started his career, I remember seeing some of his earlier works. They were all artsy fartsy, like, movies. And to get the opportunity to do this and then to choke slam. All right, first of all, after watching multiple times that video, the woman was loaded. She was drunk too.
Oh yeah, everyone was drunk.
Apparently they were like spilling out of a bar or something or wherever they were. And he was saying something like, "You want to fight me?" And she was like walking up to him like to chest bump or something, but she wasn't being serious.
Well,
and then he grabs her by the throat and he throws her down. I mean, like,
well, what I read,
what is wrong with
she was? Well, what I read, she was basically they were. At some point, I think they were aggressive fans. From what it sounds like, they came up to him in a bar. He was drunk. They were probably drunk as well. And then they might have, when he sort of blew him off or did whatever, they started giving him a little shit. Or because I remember someone said like she was actually, if you watch her, she's making fun of how he ran in Justice League. You remember that stupid way he ran as the Flash?
Yeah,
that's what she was doing. She's making fun of him because. From what I read, and I don't know how true this is, but this is supposedly what happened was they were saying, like, he was saying he could beat them up or something, and she's like, she was like, I could beat you up, and that's what caused them to go outside because she was like, you're so skinny and you're nothing, I could beat you up, and so he took it to like, oh, let's go, and I think she probably thought this was all like a joke, like he wouldn't actually do anything to her, and that's why she was like kind of like egging him on with the stupid run, and then he just grabs her and puts her on the ground, and it didn't look like as violent, but still you shouldn't do that, period. Like, and it did definitely sound like he was drunk
no, it definitely, I mean, he was on drugs or drunk or something, and but again, it's like I think Warner Brothers, if they are all holy roly Me Too movement, he's got to go.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, it's not like, it's like when I said in my rant, when Robert Downey Jr. was doing drugs and woke up in a neighbor's house sleeping in their kid's bed, curled up, and they had to wake him up, and then he got arrested, and and he did stupid shit like that, and everyone still gave him a second chance.
Right.
And even when he got out of jail, they gave him a second chance. Hollywood gave him a second chance. Now, there's no tolerance for any of this shit. And then you choke slam a woman.
Well, what's weird?
That, like the Me Too people, and I haven't seen shit. And granted, all the coverage on the news has been COVID-19, coronavirus, everything. It's every channel, it's Twitter, it's everything. Everybody's talking about that. And this thing is like flown under the radar. But I think Warner Brothers is going to be like, nah, we don't need this right now. All the shows are shut down. I mean, I was working for Warner Brothers when my show got shut down.
Yeah.
And 300,000 people are in the film industry out of work right now.
Yeah.
And
it's pilot season right now, so nothing's being done.
Pilot season's done. Yeah, it's done. All the upfronts are going to be fun. It'll be just like the American film market, where you just walk into a room and there's posters that are made up of what could potentially be, and people will buy based on a poster. That's how they do
Yeah.
it in some respects at the American film market. That's how they're going to be doing it this year at the upfronts in May. But yeah, so between Harry Potter and or the Fantastic Beasts, and then you've got you know uh, uh, the Flash, the Justice League. This franchise that's two franchises they're going to have to recast.
Well, you know what's weird about all this is because I looked on Twitter and I saw some articles like blogs, film news blogs, and they're not really giving them a lot of crap for it. Some are trying to be like, we
No,
don't really know what's going on, and everyone's kind of like making excuses for them, which I find really odd. Because
well, I do find it really odd because again, it's like we're in this Me Too movement, and you can't abuse women,
right, well, yeah, you shouldn't do that to
and
anybody, like period.
or you shouldn't do that to anybody. But it, specifically right now, it's all about you can't treat women like shit
Right?
in
Yeah,
any
yeah.
way, shape, or form, and they shouldn't be. This should be a no tolerance. Because these guys, when they sign these multi-picture deals,
Morality
there's clauses
clauses.
in there
Yeah,
for this. There's morality
yeah,
clauses.
yeah.
These guys they gotta keep their shit together.
Well,
Um,
I think that's the thing that I'm getting more disturbed by at this point is just people sort of making excuses and defending him. Like, well, we don't really know what happened, or to me, it looks fake. And I'm just like, dude, no, if you hear the audio, it doesn't sound like it's a fake thing or some. And if
no,
it was
not at
fake,
all.
they would have immediately come out and been like, hey, we're all cool. Like, this was just us playing around, But there
Yeah, the
hasn't
person
been
who
any
had
of
the
that.
video would have been like, "Oh no, man, we were just
Right.
wrestling. We were drunk. We were having a good time." No, man, how much you want to bet she lawyered up? And they're not saying. And this happened in Iceland.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so somebody was on my YouTube channel in the comment section. They were like, "Well, how do we know we don't have a police report?" And I'm like, "I mean, how are you going to get a police report from Iceland
Right.
if one
Right.
was filed or there was a complaint? Like, how do you do that?" So I don't know. It's just one of those things, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And then I see, the Batman.
Mhm.
Okay, so I haven't had a chance to really delve into the Batman. Um, I was looking forward to this, but I liked all of the Planet of the Apes films, right? I enjoyed them.
Right.
Did you like them?
Yeah. I mean, they were
And
good.
then,
They were definitely way better than I thought they would be.
yeah, and then, there was something that struck me odd that was reported early on. Now, this was before Ben Affleck had hopped off the film because he had written his own film, which was Batman against Deathstroke, which I still think that would have been badass to see,
Yeah.
especially because they even gave us a hint of that,
Right.
with the secret filming that was going on. Um, and you get this new version of the Batman, and the card comes out. They show the car, and right away I'm like, how cheap does that look like they went on that car?
Yeah.
It looked like they took a Dodge Challenger and cut the back end off, flipped the engine around. Yeah, I don't know. It just did, and it's supposed to be, oh well, he doesn't have Lucius Fox yet, and he's doing all this on
Yeah.
his own, so it'd be just like a guy tinkering with a muscle car. And I'm like, yeah, but like if you were gonna fight crime, and you were going up against people that have weapons,
Right.
why would you have an exposed rear engine?
Well, he's definitely going for Batman Year One, like that whole storyline from the looks of it. And I mean, at this point, do we need a beginning for Batman? I mean, everyone knows who Batman is, and we've had so many movies. I think that, and there's so many great storylines that we never get to because everyone wants to just wrap it up in a bow in 3 films. I mean, Nolan for me is the best version of Batman. I love those
Oh
movies.
yeah, the Nolan versus, yeah, hands down.
They should have just built from that and moved forward, because when you had Zack Snyder, and like the problem with Zack Snyder is I like that he's a stylistic guy. He just chose the wrong comic book to emulate. Like he what was the name of the comic? The Dark Knight Returns. Like if you read that
Yeah.
comic book, it takes place way in the future where they're all kind of at the end of the road, both Superman and Batman, and it's really just kind of a depressing comic book. It's a great comic book, but it's very depressing. So why would you launch a franchise at sort of the end? like it, and it's because he was obsessed with that comic book, and you could see it's all through all his movies that he's emulating that comic book with the desaturation, making Superman like super emo and dark. I mean, it's a miss completely. And like for me, and then just to sort of segue back to Ezra Miller a little bit, perfect opportunity to get rid of him, because I never liked him as the Flash. He never his stupid running. I never bought that. Like the weird, like you said it in your video you did of him, your rant where
he's quirky.
Yeah, that's not
He's
Barry
weird.
Allen. That's just not Barry Allen.
Going back to the Batman with the helmet, you know, they got the gimp leather stitched helmet on him. I mean, I don't mind the body armor.
Yeah.
The plating, having the batarang in the chest, or it looks like two halves of maybe a grappling gun or something like that come out of his chest. And you know, I don't know, man. Like for me, I would have rather, like you, I would have rather seen Joseph Gordon-Levitt take on the Nolan verse. They set it up. It was perfect. Nolan's trilogy was done. It was the most successful, hands down, you know, Batman franchise they've ever made thus far on a cinematic level. And they could have just went with it. It was grounded in reality.
Oh yeah.
You know, it would have just been fine if they just would have went with that. But they screwed this. And so now, like, the more that comes out about the Batman, and I going back to the when I was talking about Ben Affleck and walking away and you know, the new script coming in, Matt Reeves with his script. And then when I knew there was trouble, when Warner Brothers, it leaked that Warner Brothers said there wasn't enough action in the script and that Matt Reeves was making a very detective, hiding behind drapes, you know, in the dark as people have conversations, really making it a murder mystery, because apparently it's a murder mystery.
Right.
It's a murder mystery caper that Batman has to solve. And when I heard that they were writing it that way, I thought to myself, and then they requested more action. We need more fight scenes in this. We need more action. That was their direction. That was their note to Matt Reeves' script. They're already seeing the red flags going, you know what? We've already screwed the pooch with this Zack Snyder stuff. Justice League cost $500 million to make. That didn't include marketing. You know, people, they float around the 350 thing, but they it was $500 million with all the reshoots and everything. And Warner Brothers hemorrhaging money. And then the DC Cinematic Universe app was a complete disaster for them. You know, they pulled the plug on Swamp Thing, $80 million, $85 million budget. My wife worked on that show. And it's just, you know, and so then, you know, they bring on J.J. Abrams. They steal him away from Disney, the Mouse House, give him a $500 million deal for Bad Robot. And they're like, okay, now fix everything.
Right.
And I think he will, but I think Matt Reeves' film was too far into production and development for JJ to get in there and go, you know what? We need to do this more like I did with, you know, The Force Awakens and make it a $2 billion haul at the box office. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be $1 billion movie, the new Batman movie. Well, I just don't see it.
The problem with the direction it sounds like they're going in is that would be great as a Netflix or HBO Max series. If you're going to have it, because we're at this point now, especially after Avengers Endgame, the bar is just so high and people are expecting them to be sort of event films in a way where, again, you can do, and I still think if you released Nolan's trilogy now, it would still do really well. If no one had ever seen it before.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it still holds up, which is great considering it's like over 10 years old now. You know, it's still a great thing. So it's like, if you're going to do something, you know, more slower, like you're talking about him hiding behind curtains and doing more detective work, that kind of thing works great in a long format. But when I go to see a Batman movie, I'm looking for 2.5 hours of, you know, the Dark Knight level action or Endgame level action.
You're looking for Arkham Asylum.
Right, yeah.
You're looking for that kind of gameplay, fighting and action and a badass Batmobile and everything. And then I thought for sure they would make the Batmobile look like Arkham Asylum. I was like, oh man, they tried to do that with the Justice League Batmobile, but that kind of fell flat. I never was really in love with that. I love the Tumbler. I love the Keaton car. Was never a fan of the Justice League Batmobile, and they had an opportunity here, and then the Batmobile comes out and it just looks like a Dodge Challenger with a rear engine, and I'm like, blah.
Yeah.
And then you see the Batman, the cowl looks terrible. Now look, they're stacking the deck pretty good. Look, Rob Pattinson is an extremely talented actor.
Yeah.
He's going to do a great job. I had this past summer, I had worked on a movie with one of the producers who produced The Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a conversation on second unit. We were doing second unit stuff on this movie called Uncle Frank. And Alan Ball is the director of that movie. And Vision, the actor who played Vision.
Yeah. Paul Bettany or whatever.
Paul Bettany is the star of the film. With the little girl from It. She's in that too as well. And anyway, long story short, we started talking all about Rob Pattinson, and I was like, I showed him when it broke, the news broke. I said, did you see what Variety is showing? I said, look, I showed him my phone. I said, he's going to play Batman. And he was like, what? And he was like, oh, dude, he's going to be great. Yeah. He's going to kill that role. Plus, you find out that just like he has wanted to play Batman his whole life. And see, that's the kind of guy you want in that part. Someone who it's his dream role, to play this character and to be this character. And again, like I said, you got Jeffrey Wright, you got Colin Farrell, I think he does a lot better with these quirky British Snatch type films, and I like the fact that in all of his movies now, he tries to do something totally different. He's playing by the Brad Pitt rules, where Brad Pitt, like, after he was named Sexiest Man Alive in People magazine years ago, and he had the long Legends of the Fall hair. Yeah. There's a story when he went on to do the movie Seven, that was like his next film. He had that long hair. And I don't know if there's any truth to the story. It might have been rumor in the industry, but he had gone in on day one before they started filming, went in with a set of clippers into his dressing room and cut his own hair, all that long hair, and came out. And the director was like, what what did you just do? He said because he didn't want to be Sexiest Man Alive. He didn't want people to look at him that way. And then you look at 12 Monkeys. He got contact. He wants a contact in his eyes, so his eyes looking this way. And then, in a lot of his movies, the ones with George Clooney and all that, the Ocean's 11, he needs a broken arm. He wants his arm in a sling. He always makes his character be hurt or injured in some capacity so that they are all different from the rest of his characters that he's ever played. Same with Snatch. Like he's, when he played the gypsy guy, he's always trying to do something different with himself. Rob Pattinson's the same way. And, so he's going to bring something to the role, and again, it's just, I'm kind of looking at this just like I look at the new Star Wars trilogy, the sequel trilogy. It's not my Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And the people that watch those Star Wars movies first are going to love those Star Wars movies as much as I like the original trilogy that I grew up with. Same as you've got people that are purists with the prequel trilogies, the Phantom Menace, the Attack of the Clones.
I don't know how.
There are people that grew up with that grew up with Jar Jar, and that's their guy.
That's their Star Wars. Yeah.
That's their guy.
Yeah.
And so there is a whole new generation that's going to watch the Batman, and it's going to be their guy.
I mean,
and as far as I'm,
I hope it doesn't suck. I never want any of these to be bad movies. They have stacked the deck with great actors, and they have a great director. I'm hoping it's better than these little breadcrumbs we're getting online, that you're seeing something sort of where it's not lit and colored and perfectly shot. You're just sort of seeing leaked images. So I'm hoping that, this is all just us just kind of reading into it too much, and then the movie is actually amazing. So, I mean,
Well, and again, like if you look at the Planet of the Apes films, Matt Reeves knocked that shit out of the park.
yeah,
Right. And so I have faith because, like, when I'm tearing up at, Andy Serkis's performance,
yeah,
which is not even really there after they put the CGI
Yeah.
Caesar on top of it, and I'm crying for basically a cartoon monkey.
right,
That's good directing.
Yeah.
That's good animators. That's good CGI. That's good motion capture. That's good performance from Andy Serkis. That performance is only dictated by how that director worked with that actor and figured out how to make that work. The linchpin in the Batman for me is Warner Brothers asking for more action, and that it was a detective story with him hiding
Yeah.
behind curtains and listening and eavesdropping and trying to figure out a murder mystery.
yeah.
I was like, fuck. Are we getting Batman Knives Out?
Well,
Is that what we're getting?
I hope not, because Matthew Vaughn, he directed First Class, right? X-Men First Class.
No, Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, that's it. So this isn't
Matthew. This isn't
Nah,
no. Matt
I got him
Reeves
confused.
directed the Planet of the Apes.
right,
movie.
right,
And Matthew Vaughn, it was X-Men First Class.
right.
But yeah, so I mean, it's just like but again, it's like if they're complaining about the script that early in development, that pushed the production start date because he had to do rewrites.
Well, that's a good thing.
There's already trouble. Yes, but there's already
Yeah.
trouble in the hen house because
Right.
what'll happen is he'll do the rewrites, but then when he gets on set, he just might do what he wants to do, like Rian Johnson.
Right. That's true.
Okay. And then when Warner Brothers is 75% through and no one's checking dailies,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and then they go, what the hell do we have here?
I do think I think Warner Brothers and DC, whatever they're calling themselves now, DC Expanding Universe or whatever it is. I mean, they are kind of all over the place right now. Like, you can't really pin it down. I mean, the Joker kind of confuses everything for me because it was a good movie, but where do you go from that? I mean, is it just a one-off? And because I mean, to me, that's kind of dumb from a money-making perspective. Like, clearly you want to build franchises. These are franchise type characters. And then you're just going to one-off.
And then the Joker did $1 billion.
Yeah. I mean, they could be making more. Like, so that's like the point I'm making is like why they would, and I appreciate what they did. And it was a good movie, but at the end when they were like, Batman won't be in it ever, really in it, or we don't see it ever, them coming together. I'm like, you'll never be able to tell the greatest Joker stories without Batman. And like that, so that to me is just what, other than it being a good movie that like you've even said, it's really just sort of a knockoff of a couple of Scorsese films. It's just where do you go from there? I don't get it. And so it's like, it seems like that's sort of the thing with DC. They've had so many change-ups.
How many times have we seen the Wayne family get gunned down in an alleyway?
The pearls going all over the street. Yeah.
No, but the Batman,
Yeah.
Martha and Bruce and Thomas Wayne are alive.
How does that work?
They haven't been. They're not killed yet. He's going in a different direction.
So he's subverting expectations.
He's subverting expectations. He's pulling.
Now I have no
Ryan
faith.
Johnson.
I have no faith. I have no faith.
They're not apparently they're not dead yet.
Yeah.
And he's going off to be Batman on his own. But here's the question: it's like, if that is the story they're going with, then where's the motivation to become a crime fighter?
Yeah, that's the catalyst that makes him become
the
Batman.
It makes him become Batman is that his mother and father have been gunned down.
Yeah.
But I think maybe somebody was listening to Shaun when he said, "How many times are you going to watch the Wayne family get gunned down?"
Right.
I mean, it's Justice League. It was in Justice League, wasn't it? It was in Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
It was in the Joker. It was in every version of it was in the two Keaton
Batman
films.
Begins had it.
Batman Begins had it.
Yep.
And so yeah, you've got a situation where they're constantly gunning down this mother and father and dropping pearls everywhere.
Well,
like
I mean, and I think again, like that's my point is we don't need origin stories for Batman. Everybody knows who Batman is. He's one of DC's biggest characters. So you don't need to like introduce him. And it's sort of like how they handled, like Marvel got that right with Spider-Man. everyone knows Spider-Man's origin story at this point. So they just dropped it
Yeah.
in like 6 months after it happened. So it's like, when we see him in not Winter Soldier, but Civil War, like we've already passed the origin story, and that worked. Everyone bought it. Everyone loves Spider-Man.
Dude, because no one needed that anymore.
Right. You don't. Like
you don't. Everyone knows who the hell Spider-Man is. You don't need to see Uncle get killed
yeah.
every movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you just don't.
I don't know. And to me though, if you're not going to kill, I mean, again, they should just be jumping in to where Batman's already a thing. We don't need to see Batman become Batman. We saw that in in Batman Begins. Beautifully done. It was a great movie.
Beautifully done.
And
Ra's
so it's
al
like,
Ghul,
yeah,
Liam Neeson. Oh my God.
it's such a great,
you can't top that.
That whole training stuff. I mean, that was just great. So it's like, it's been done. Like, we don't need that there. And like what I'm annoyed with, there are so many great Batman stories that we just never get to see because all these people are obsessed with telling that one part of it over and over again. Cause it's like you have this whole life of work and you keep focusing on these, like this one decade. And it's like, there's so many more of awesome stories you could be telling that people want to see that have never come to the screen before, but they keep focusing on stuff we've already seen. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Speaking of never come to screen, Indiana Jones 5. Oh my God, they delayed it again, but it's because of coronavirus. I get it.
I get it.
But Harrison Ford will be 79 years old while they're filming in 2021, and when it's released in 2022, he'll be 80 years old. Oh man, it's like, do you even bother?
I think it's done.
Look, I am the biggest Indiana Jones fan on the planet. Next to, there's a couple that are bigger than me, but I mean, obviously behind me is my full Indiana Jones costume, and I'm the guy in my unboxing video that spent $515 on a replica Indiana Jones hat made by the guy who, it's the Adventure Built hat. You could go watch that video, but it's like, I know Harrison wants to Harrison said no one will play Indiana Jones other than him until he's dead. He's on the record. He said it. That's why when everybody was like, oh, you're going to pass the torch to somebody else? No. He said, no, I'm Indiana Jones. That's it. I get it. When he dies, they're going to pick it up and they're going to do something else with it. Lucasfilm is, because it's a franchise. It's a multi-million-dollar
Well, you kind of got that at the end of Crystal Skull when Shia went to grab the hat and he like grabs it from him or whatever. He's like, because
not today, kid.
Because everyone thought that was a setup for Shia to take over the franchise. Like, at least that's what I was thinking. And then at that end was like a little too. That was a little nod to be like, not yet. That's so
I really hope that if they do the next Indiana Jones film, and they do, what's great is they've got Mangold is going to direct, taking over for Spielberg, which is great. Spielberg's, his slate is just, he's packed.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the movies he's doing, but he's producing in the background and executive producing. And he's like J.J. Abrams. He's doing like 50 million things. Let somebody else take a turn. Crystal Skull did, 789 million. But they were hoping for more. But the word of mouth on that movie wasn't so good. I think with James Mangold, you have an opportunity to do Logan as Indiana Jones. And everyone's like, well, but the Indiana Jones Chronicles is, the old man Indiana Jones with the eye patch.
Who's seen that? Like, who at this point, who even remembers that anymore?
But again, Lucasfilm, they wiped the slate clean with all the Star Wars stuff and they call it Legends.
Right.
And they can do the same thing with this. Let's end Indiana Jones. If he wants to go out and be the only Indiana Jones, let's go ahead and go out like Logan, give him an amazing story with some serious dramatic edge to it, and he dies at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's 80. Like, where else are you going to go with it, man? I mean, at some point, he's... I think as much as I would love to see another Indiana Jones movie, but granted, Harrison Ford is an unusual bird. Like, the guy's still flying airplanes and crashing them and walking away. So it's like, if anyone could do it, it's probably him. I mean, and again, Stallone, he's still making Rocky movies that are pretty good. So
yeah, but Stallone is not 80.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, let's add 25 more years onto Stallone and let's see how he's doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Stallone's got to be in his
you know,
70s, man. Like, right?
no, he's not. No, he's like 67,
Really?
maybe,
I feel like he's 70.
maybe, maybe.
But yeah,
Are we gonna look that up?
I don't know. But
I'll tell you. I'll tell you how. No, well, keep going. Um,
yeah.
uh, uh, but my point is, it's like we need to come up with a way to phase out Indiana Jones. Uh, and let's see, Stallone. He's 73 years old. Stallone.
See? And
So
he
he's up there.
like 71 or 72 did what
But
Rambo 5 or
no,
whatever.
the last no when well yeah, but he was okay. All right.
So
All right,
I'm saying, like, I believe
and Harrison Ford's in good shape, and Harrison Ford is a pescatarian. He only eats fish and
Right.
vegetables, so he takes good care of
I
himself.
believe he could pull it off. But this definitely needs to be the last Indiana Jones if they do it. But again,
Well, I mean, and you know, uh, you know, Lawrence Kasdan's son took a shot at the script. They had the same guy, David Cope. He knocked out the first version. He's the guy that wrote Crystal Skull. So they let him write out a version. They didn't like it. They had Kasdan come in. He writes his version, and then they don't like it, and they bring in James Mangold. Now the coronavirus hits. They shut down everything. It was supposed to be filming in August.
oh wow.
It's like 2 months away, 3 months away. They were going to be lensing the next Indiana Jones film. And now they're not. So they have time to get the script right. And give him a good send off. But we definitely, I feel it's time for him to put the hat away. What I thought would have been really cool would be, and I thought they were going to do this with Crystal Skull. I thought, with the space aliens and the ship at the end, he would, because of the quest for knowledge, he would walk onto the ship and disappear.
Right.
And then when they put out a 50th anniversary edition of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the ramp comes down and all the World War II guys come out and stuff, and we're reunited, you'd have Indiana Jones that CGI him and walking down
Dude,
the
that would
ramp.
have been epic. That would have been
Dude,
epic if they had done that.
That would have been epic. But obviously that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But then, like I heard Kasdan's script had something to do with the Nazis again, even though they've already kind of moved past that. And it was 1950, 54 or something in the last one, Crystal Skull, and or 57 it might have been. No, it was like 54. And this one is all about, the Nazis took a bunch of this is like real. They took a bunch of gold from the Jewish people and they put it on a train, and all of the riches left. And there's a legend that the train was put in. The Nazis built a tunnel, put the train in there, and collapsed the tunnel and got rid of the tracks. And so it's this hunt for this Nazi gold. It's actually Jewish gold, but and Indiana Jones was going to go off and try to find this. And it didn't sound good. That might not have been Kasdan's story. There's been several scripts that have been written over the years. Who knows how many versions of what there's been since Last Crusade. Because that last film was in development for 12 years. Crystal Skull, 12 years, and now been 12 years since that came out, 2008.
Sean Connery dodged that bullet. Sean Connery really dodged that bullet.
Well, Sean Connery, he dodged the bullet, but also I think they wanted him to come in and do a cameo.
No, they did. They did. I remember watching an interview with George Lucas and Spielberg went to him and begged him to come back. And he was like, he talked to his agent and he was like, the third act's always shit. So he's like, don't do it. And then that's why it was just a picture on a desk in Crystal Skull. But I mean, yeah, he definitely.
What bothered me about that was the picture on the desk was a promo shot from
The Last Crusade. Yeah.
Same thing with the picture of Denholm Elliott was a picture from Last Crusade as well, when he was like first Marcus and then Dad. And I was like, dude, you couldn't have found other photos like of those guys from back in the day that you could get a release on. All they did was like, oh, well, we own the rights to all the stuff in the archives. Let's just use those photos. But it was clearly pictures that were from Last Crusade. That bothered me.
Yeah.
And then I'll complain about a couple of things real quick about about Crystal Skull before we end this. there's a continuity flaw in the diner where Shia LaBeouf's pissed because he says, "Who is your mother?" And he goes, "Mary, Mary." And he goes, "There was a lot of Marys." And he stomps his hand on the table, and a ketchup bottle and a mustard bottle falls over. But then when you cut to the reverse angle, they're standing up. And then when you cut back to Shia's coverage, Harrison Ford picks them both up, boop, boop, and puts them on the table. And I thought to myself, and he was like, "Settle down, kid," or whatever he said. And I thought, and I saw that in the theater, and I was like, that was so blatant in editorial. Like, how did you not see, even with the script supervisor, that the mustard and ketchup bottle fell over, and in the wider shot, it was back up again, and then when it cuts back, Harrison Ford stacking them again. I didn't understand why that made it into the movie from an editorial standpoint. It was like, it's one thing to have a boom mic that comes down, that now they can CGI that stuff out. That stuff's like not even, like, boom mics should be a thing of the past when it comes to CGI. I just don't understand why they did that.
I mean,
it's like, where was the paying attention to detail?
Yeah.
And it was things like that bothered me about the film. And I thought the movie was great until they got to Akator.
Yeah, well,
as soon as they got to Akator and the aliens and this flying saucer, and it just, like, the ending killed it for me because it was overly CGI produced. The monkeys were CGI, the CGI spaceship at the end. It just got so inundated. And then even like the one scene when they were in the grave, the tomb of the conquistadors, and the CGI scorpion. Like, why in all the movies you've had real snakes, real cockroaches, real everything? Why couldn't you have taken a fucking scorpion and thrown it right on Shia?
Yeah. It's funny because my wife and I just watched the whole trilogy or all their films over again. And
you watched Crystal Skull?
We did watch Crystal Skull, and it was surprisingly not as bad as I remember, because we were like, it's actually not bad until about halfway through the movie when they go to wherever and they get captured, when they're in the quicksand or whatever.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it sucked. It was just not a good, you're like, what happened? Like, you had a great first act and a somewhat interesting second act, and then just lost it in the rest of it. So
I remember being in the theater as a hardcore Indiana Jones fan, and when I saw the Paramount symbol turn into like this mound that collapsed and a little gopher came out, I knew the movie would suck.
Right.
At that moment, sitting in the theater, I went, "What the hell am I in for?
Right.
What did I just buy my ticket for?" And I went, "Are you absolutely? You couldn't come up with something else besides a CGI mound with a guy?" And the thing is, they told the joke 3 times.
Right.
The gopher in the beginning with the Paramount symbol, ha 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 ha. Okay, and then when they're in the rocket car going across the desert, you see the prairie dogs look again, left to right. Oh, they told the joke again, and then the refrigerator was a gag enough in itself, which I could forgive that because it was lead lined, and it was a lot like the when they jumped out of, in Temple of Doom, they jumped out of the plane with the inflatable raft.
Oh yeah.
Okay, a little unbelievable, but it played well. I could have forgiven that until the prairie dog comes out of the hole and looks at Indiana Jones while there's a nuclear explosion going on behind him, and then scurries back into his hole. They told the joke 3 times.
Yeah.
You got it the first time with the Paramount symbol. You should have never put the prairie dogs in it the 2 more times. Those were those fatal flaws with that film. You never tell a joke over and over again in a movie. That's just like a rule of thumb when it comes to that was bad script writing. That was David Koch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I think also too, it's like, and I noticed this with Lucas and Spielberg, as they've gotten older, it's like you can tell they're not making movies they want to see anymore. They're making movies that they want their kids and grandkids to watch. Again, why you have a Jar Jar Binks, why you have stupid hedgehogs or whatever, gophers popping out of holes, because those are for really kids to like, aha, look at that.
Well, I mean, and when Jar Jar was created, and when he was making the Phantom Menace, he had his adopted son. He has an adopted daughter and an adopted son. Lucas does. And his adopted son was brought into the development area, and when he saw the creature, the little maquette of Jar Jar, he went, "Gung Gung." And they said, "Well, I guess we're calling it Gungans."
Wow.
And so he made those movies for his kids.
Yeah.
Can you blame him? No, I don't blame him. Everybody gets older. But And again, it's the same things. Like the Spielberg's last greatest film was Munich,
Yeah, that was a good movie.
and that's just how I feel. Who wants a West Side Story remake?
Well, I just
Why?
think, I think when Spielberg was at his best was when he was making the movies he wanted to see, and now it's like he's making his outlook has changed, so he's not that same director anymore. Same with Lucas, and you see it as directors mature. Some of them, especially if they have families, they start gearing stuff for their family instead of what they wanted to see, and that's, I feel like,
I can
kind of a
understand.
problem
I can.
when you need to step out and let someone else come in and do it, when you don't have that same
Well, and
drive.
that's why James Mangold is coming in to do the new Indy
Yeah,
5.
yeah,
Fresh eyes, gritty. He give us a Logan. Indiana Jones must die. No riding off into the sunset. We already did that in Last Crusade. We're done with
right.
that shit. Kill Indiana. Let me cry in the theater like I did when Han Solo was speared through by his son,
Yeah,
and let me put it to rest.
I agree.
I've had a good time, man.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
This is our first show.
Yeah, this is pretty much what we do, back and forth when we're just talking on the phone. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, this has been great, man. I love having you, and we're gonna keep doing this for a while.
Cool.
Okay, well, that does it for us here on the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. We hope you enjoyed this first episode. I want to thank my guest Stu for helping me out here and getting the ball rolling. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want, be looking for the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. All the links are going to be in the comments section below on the YouTube channel. And don't forget to hit up all my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and keep up with me instantaneously. We'll see you guys, and you can hear us on the next one.